Can people hear me, or do I need to use a microphone? Good, because my husband always says I'm too loud. So. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this conference. I think this is the third time I've done it, and each year it's just an amazing experience. And as usual, I start off with a song, and it's always the same song because for some reason I cannot update my repertoire because I love these two pieces so much. Song is how I really learned a lot of the social justice in my household. Though I'm not a practitioner of any religious belief system, gospel was something that was kind of deeply embedded in the Black tradition of kind of fusing, I guess, Christian and Black liberation and music and stuff like that. So my mom kind of introduced me to this whole concept of music and social justice, and was later introduced to Sweet Honey in the Rock, and they're a big influence on me. So I just want to share this with you. And sorry if you've heard this a million times, if you've followed my videos, but it's kind of, it embodies the essence of what I do. And there's two songs. It sounds better when there's an actual a cappella group with you, but I'm going to swing it as a solo. We will not bow down to racism. We will not bow down to injustice. Oh, we will not bow down to exploitation. I'm gonna stand. I'm gonna stand. We are the ones. We are the ones. We've been waiting. We are the ones. We are the ones. We've been waiting. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones, we are the ones we've been waiting. We are the ones, we are the ones we've been waiting. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones. So I sing that all the time. It kind of grounds me, it reminds me through really tough times of social justice work that I've been doing over the past 15 years that I'm not going to be in collusion with systems of oppression. So that was kind of the first song. And the second one is like, why wait for someone to do it when we're the ones we've been waiting for? And that's basically how I've lived my life since the age of 12, when I upset my K-12 teachers always asking, why is everything about whiteness? Why is everything about whiteness? Why do you treat the animals this way? So that's kind of been my guiding principles and the music I want to share with you, and hopefully you can think about what that means. And one of the ways in which I kind of continue with this work of like, you know, why is anyone doing it? The other year, I became very interested in the Black Lives Matter movement, and very interested in the mainstream rhetoric around veganism and the supposed disconnect between Black Lives Matter and veganism. So last year, when I was online, maybe it was Twitter, maybe it was Facebook, and I encountered yet another post by mainstream self-identified white vegans saying things like, vegan Praxis and Black lives, there's no, what's the connection? And, you know, why are we only looking at Black lives matter, only animal lives matter? I got incredibly infuriated because for me, veganism, the way I define it, it's ahimsa. It's rooted in nonviolence and harmlessness, and I'm applying that to all living beings. And then understanding what does that mean when I'm looking at Black Lives Matter and Black liberation through that lens, and what are people who are Black identified, who are vegan, how are we actually handling Black Lives Matter through an anti-racist and anti-specious platform? What does that look like? I'm going to sit down and share with you some of the thoughts. So when I was thinking about this last summer, I realized there needs to be a conference put together about the vegan praxis of Black Lives Matter, because no one's doing it, and obviously we need to talk about it because there is no disconnect. You cannot have an anti-specious world if you have a world embedded in systemic racism. You cannot have an anti-racist world and not think about non-human animals. You just can't do it. So how can we approach this? So I'm like, let me do it. Let me put together a webinar. And it took place this past spring. And this talk is going to be kind of about what we talked about and then also what I'm doing after that to continue this work. So here's the beautiful poster that represented our conference. And it's double meaning. So the hands up, don't shoot. Innocent. Why are you looking at me as if I'm, going to cause harm to white America? But there's also, you can see the double meaning where, there's this bullet sign also on the head of a cow, and the way that the human beings in America treat cows as well as this target just being consumed. So this is kind of integrated, and this was created by Alicia Eastgate out in Oakland, California, a woman of color, vegan. And I use it for the poster because it was very intersectional. It's very beautiful. So the subtitle to the poster, I'm sorry you can't probably see it very well. It was challenging neoliberal whiteness while building anti-racist solidarity among vegans of color and allies before, after, and beyond Ferguson. So it was a webinar, 2 days long conference. And basically we recorded everything, PowerPoints, and for those of you, most of you probably weren't able to be part of the whole thing, I wanted to kind of go through the key points and then talk about the continuation of this work. So, for those of you who are not knowledgeable about the roots of Black Lives Matter, I'm going to read. Because a lot of people may see the stickers around, but they may not actually understand the roots. So, did I introduce myself? Sorry, I'm Dr. Amy Breeze Harper. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. And I'm the founder of the Sistah Vegan project. So I apologize for not introducing myself. So I've been doing this work for about 10 years now, and I edited a volume called the Sistah Vegan. Sistah Vegan, Black female vegans speak on food, identity, health, and society. I run a blog, did my dissertation work on intersections of anti-racism and animal compassion. And this is the work I've been doing, so sorry I didn't introduce myself. When I came across the Black Lives Matter movement, I realized that a lot of what's going on in that movement basically paralleled the goals of the Sistah Vegan project, which is basically dismantling systemic oppressions, but from the experiences of largely Black identified women. And I think it's important to understand what the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement were trying to address when they first developed this particular continuum of the Black liberation struggle. So a quote, and this is from the founders. Black Lives Matter was created in 2012 after Trayvon Martin's murderer, George Zimmerman, was acquitted for his crime. And dead 17-year-old Trayvon was posthumously placed on trial for his own murder. Rooted in the experiences of Black people in this country who actively resist our dehumanization, Black Lives Matter is a call to action and a response to the virulent anti-Black racism that permeates our society. Black Lives Matter is a unique contribution that goes beyond extrajudicial killings of Black people by police and vigilantes. It goes beyond the narrow nationalism that can be prevalent within Black communities, which merely call on Black people to love Black, live Black, buy Black, keeping straight, cis Black men in the front of the movement, while our sisters, queer and trans and disabled folk take up roles in the background or not at all. Black Lives Matter affirms the lives of Black, queer and trans folks, disabled folks, Black undocumented folks, folks with records, women, and all Black lives along the gender spectrum. It centers those that have been marginalized within Black liberation movements. It is a tactic to rebuild the Black liberation movement. When we say Black Lives Matter, we are broadening the conversation around state violence to include all of the ways in which Black people are intentionally left powerless at the hands of the state. We are talking about the ways in which Black lives are deprived of our basic human rights and dignity. How Black poverty and genocide is state violence. How 2.8 million Black people are locked in cages in this country is state violence. How Black women bearing the burden of a relentless assault on our children and our families is state violence. How Black, queer, and trans folk bear a unique burden from a heteropatriarchal society that disposes of us like garbage and simultaneously fetishizes us and profits off of us, and the state is violence. How 500,000 Black people in the U.S. are undocumented immigrants and relegated to the shadows. How Black girls are used as negotiating chips during times of conflict and war. How Black folks living with disabilities and different abilities bear the burden of state-sponsored Darwinian experiments that attempt to squeeze us into boxes of normality defined by white supremacy, and that is state violence. Black Lives Matter is working for a world where Black lives are no longer systematically and intentionally targeted for demise. We affirm our contributions to the society, our humanity, and our resilience in the face of deadly oppression. We have put our sweat, equity, and love for Black people into creating a political project, taking the hashtag off of a social media and into the streets. The call for Black lives to matter is a rallying cry for all Black lives striving for liberation, end quote. And I thought that was really important because a lot of the times when we're looking at social media and how the media is representing the Black struggle, it really is the atrocities against Black cisgender men. And I think that's kind of important to focus on. I'm not saying that I'm going to play Oppression Olympics and who is, suffering more, but there's this focus that it's the straight cisgender Black man that's always the focus of the Black liberation struggle. And that's always been centered since I think the struggle has been in terms of media and media representation. And when I put together the Black Lives Matter conference, I did not want to continue that theme. So I put the conference together with intention to not be cis-sexist, which means I'm not going to assume that everybody's gender identity is cisgender, meaning if you are born with a vagina and you are literally labeled as female, you live that heteronormative gender role as woman or girl. Like, I want to go beyond that. So I integrated into the conference speakers that could talk about gender and going beyond that binary, and how it's important to actually understand that you cannot be cis-sexist and have Black liberation and have an anti-speciesist world. So I'm just kind of going through this a little quickly, sorry about that, because there's a lot that I don't want to repeat because people have the option to actually look at the downloaded conference, which was 2 days long. But for the conference, I was thinking about a lot of things. I was thinking about how a lot of times I'll meet people of African descent who are vegan, but really focused on the Black liberation person point of view and not really looking at it from an anti-speciesist point of view. So there's rhetoric that Black people shouldn't eat pigs because pigs are filthy animals. Well, how about Black people shouldn't eat pigs because to actually put a pig in that situation is cruel? So it's that type of rhetoric. So we're not just looking at racisms and like racial profile. We're actually looking at other issues within the Black community that are not being touched upon but should be. So with that said, these were the several main questions that we asked during the conference. What does a vegan praxis of Black Lives Matter look like? And by the way, praxis just means how you engage in the actions for change that you engage in. What are the foundations, the methodologies, the theories that back what you're doing and why you believe in it? So praxis is this old school word that a lot of Black feminists use back in like 20 or 30 years ago when we were developing that canon for academia. So the other questions I have had for this conference: what does veganism that ignores Black Lives Matter look like? And what are the unintended consequences? Why do race and whiteness matter? And how do they operate? What does allyship look like within the Black Lives Matter movement amongst non-Black vegans and Black non-vegans? So, over the past decade, I, the founder of the Sistah Vegan project, I've engaged in critical race and critical whiteness analysis of the North American vegan movement relentlessly. And it was clear to me that, the rhetoric is always, it's most likely, you're going to run across rhetoric that's very post-racial, that race has nothing to do with consumption. Big problem for me. So, there's those of us Black vegans and allies who've been engaging in multiple practices entrenched in dismantling systemic and institutionally based racism, negrophobia, neoliberal whiteness, some call it neoliberal racism, and speciesism for a long time. And we're the continuum of a legacy of anti-racist and anti-white supremacist activists and scholars who have always fought to make it known that Black lives matter. And these activists and scholars, I include W.E.B. Du Bois, Assata Shakur, Fannie Lou Hamer, Angela Davis, who is vegan, Morris Dees, Ella Baker, Nina Simone, Bell Hooks, Ida B. Wells, Octavia Butler, who is vegan, Audre Lorde, Derek Bell, Peggy McIntosh, James Baldwin, the Black Panther Party, and the Combahee Collective, and the list goes on. So recently, the brilliant and the race-conscious Black identified vegan chef, Bryant Terry, ruminated over how the cookbook Thug Kitchen, which came out in 2014 fall, was in contradiction to the core themes that can be found in the Black Lives Movement. The controversy surrounding Thug Kitchen became a microcosm of how races lived differently in the USA by white-identified people, such as the authors of the book. The authors refused to acknowledge the dangers of how their own white neoliberal geopolitical status was in collusion with maintaining systemic racism and anti-black violence. They simply could not reflect on how their use of the word thug was not innocent, but relied very much on the racialization of thug as a scary black urban male gangster. Such denial was a clear indicator by thug kitchen protesters, such as Lizbeth Ross, who actually presented as a keynote speaker for the conference. So there's this denial, and there's this movement of black and other people of color vegans who are trying to understand why the thug kitchen controversy was not as, I guess, well received and understood that they want it to be in mainstream vegan America. So during the conference, I invited Lizbeth Ross to actually give the keynote talk to talk about the prison industrial complex, which is connected to this notion of who is a thug and who deserves to be profiled as a thug. And then I also invited other speakers to talk about what it means to understand, when you have the prison industrial complex, you've got these people who are incarcerated, high rates are black and brown men, and what it means that the corporate capitalist kitchen, such as corporations that actually go and contract with places like Whole Foods, who have contracts with Colorado correctional facilities. They actually have people who are inmates making food. So Whole Foods has a contract with them to get tilapia fish. And they have a contract with the correctional facilities for the inmates to make artisanal goat cheese. So I really started thinking, like, how can you not see that the speciesism involved in exploiting animals and exploiting black and brown men at higher rates to put them in jail, prison, to be part of this workers of an agricultural labor force. And they're getting 60 cents a day if they're lucky, or is it 60 cents an hour, or something very close to slavery. So in this conference, Lizbeth Ross, she's the founder of the Coalition of Anti-Racist Vegans of Color, and Nen W.N., who's part of the Restaurant Workers Alliance in New York. They talked about these intersections that she had shown these pictures of inmates milking cows in jail. And just thinking about the racism and the speciesism happening together, and that the cows and these black and brown men both don't have a choice in this system. So that's like some of the things we talked about during this conference to make it more clear that Black Lives Matter, and it's totally part of the ahimsa vegan praxis. And that if you kind of ignore that or dismiss it, you're not going to solve the speciesist problem and the racist problem if you don't understand how they work together. Also interesting during the conference was that we had a non-black identified ally, Dr. Harlan Weaver, and he brought an anti-racist vegan animal focus to his work on pit bulls. And Dr. Weaver, he recognized how cisgender, transgender, racial, and able-bodied identities influence mainstream America's relationships to pit bull. He looked at the Michael Vick case from a few years ago, and the responses to largely white vegans who did not understand that they were having more of a racialized response to his actions in comparison to maybe white male chefs who boil lobsters alive. There isn't that uproar. So there was more or less, were they upset about the way animals were treated, or was it basically a direct attack against cultures of blackness and inner city and hip-hop? Because there was a lot of people saying things like, this is what happens when you have a rap culture, a hip-hop culture, inner city blacks, this is what they do, this is how they treat animals. So what was really going on there? And he had this magnificent talk talking about his work with pit bulls, but also how he is read as a white trans man, and how when he's walking with the pit bull, what that pit bull does in terms of how people read him, his gender, and his race. And what is acceptable because he has the pit bull and his race and his gender, versus what is acceptable or what is not acceptable when black and brown people have pit bulls. So it was just it was one of them. I thought it was a very important a talk that he gave, and he's working, I think, on a book for this. And it was just a way to really think about not just in terms of race, but also gender and beyond cisgender, but what it means to be a gender nonconforming person, a white person who has this pit bull versus what was happening with Michael Vick. So we talked about that, and that once again, race is not in a vacuum, gender is not in a vacuum, non-human, animal, and human relationships are not in a vacuum, that when you listen to Dr. Weaver's talk, you can see it all coming together, that you can't separate it. And then looking at, once again, what was on trial was Michael Vick's supposed collusion with treating pit bulls in a very immoral way. Was that on trial, or was black culture and kind of re-demonizing black culture, or was that what was going on when a lot of the white vegans were very upset about what was happening? So it's kind of hard to separate that. And he brought up that a lot of the mainstream white vegan world may not even realize consciously that that's what they're doing. So that was a really great talk and very necessary. And then what I want to talk about was one of the things that, I was interested in is this notion of a lot of the Black liberation movement for a long time has been referring to cops as pigs, pigs as cops. So we looked at the work of Emory Douglas. This is one of his works, and he's one of the members of the Black Panther Party that started out in Oakland, California. And he has done amazing work in terms of understanding how to liberate black people. He himself is a vegan, actually. And he has a book that all these collected works that are similar to this, and the representations of pigs as cops, cops as pigs. I've never liked it, but I also needed to understand deeply why it's important to this important image. And he's the one who's basically coined pigs as cops, cops as pigs. That's his work. So I invited Kevin Tillman of the vegan hip-hop movement for he and I to have a dialogue about, you know, this. Is there a way we can critique this without dismissing all the work that he and Black liberationists of Black Panther Party have done? Is there a way we can critique it, but also build on it and fill those gaps? You know, what we perceive as like kind of a specious vegan rhetoric that Emory Douglas seems to have because he's vegan, and we're just curious on, you know, what can his work look like when we stop particularly referring to, you know, pigs in this manner? Is there a way for us to kind of move beyond that, but also understand why collectively black people have this, you know, very intense relationship, negative relationship with the police state? So it was productive. It was great. It was a great conference, and that's kind of what was happening. That was the gist of it. And you can actually access the conference at sistahveganconference.com. There's the slides and 2 days of the people talking. So that's what happened in April. And I've been thinking more and more about how to respond to the constant negativity that I still see among the vegan mainstream. So Vegan Revolution posted this a few days after the conference, which was really interesting. I mean, they didn't participate, but this snarky response, which is it's irritating, but whatever. Black lives matter more than chickens or cows' lives, apparently. So it's like, you know, what do I do with that? I get frustrated because, to me, it's obvious that there is no disconnect. You can be vegan and support Black Lives Matter. But the point, it's not the point that Vegan Revolution posted that. The point is that there's 258 favorites, there's 446 retweets, and that was just like, you know, probably within, I don't know, an hour of having posted it. So I don't even know how many, but that's the part that I'm looking at, is like who's actually supporting it, who's favoring it. That's the part that was kind of unsettling for me. And I just continue to see this over and over again. I am baffled. Is there fear going on? What is the fear of actually acknowledging that you can do both at the same time? What is going on here? And I see this repeatedly. I also see similar signs, all lives matter, all lives matter. I come from the Berkeley area. Those signs are everywhere. And yeah, all lives matter, but like, let's be specific. Like, black people collectively have a very different history. It has to be understood if you want to understand how to get black people out of the, you know, the systemic violence against them that's specifically anti-black. You know, just like, you know, we can talk about the systemic violence against homosexual identified people. But it's specific, it's a different thing, it's not the same as black. So when I see the sticker, all lives matter, I see an appropriation where they didn't even go online and read what I just read to you about the roots of Black Lives Matter. So once again, it's kind of this coded language like, oh, but we're kind of post-racial, no, all lives matter. So I've seen those stickers everywhere. And it seems to be really, 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 you know, it seems to be very, very popular amongst a lot of the vegan mainstream, kind of using those, and also appropriating it for non-human animals. And like, yes, we know lives matter, but when you lose the specificity and the history, the unique histories, then you're not going to understand how to go about dismantling the oppressions of each of those unique groups. And that's the point. Like, you just can't stick a sticker on and say all lives matter and think that's intersectional thinking, because it's not. So that's kind of what I've been thinking about. And then I've also been thinking about ways to share what's actually going on, again, past the conference, of, you know, the hundreds of Black vegans that were vegan, and we know Black Lives Matter. And a lot of the work I've been doing has been focusing on, you know, looking at the hip-hop methodologies and the Black people who are using hip-hop methodologies to talk about veganism. So before I get to that, I just want to share what my translation of Vegan Revolution's word was. Basically what Vegan Revolution was saying, Black people have no rights that the white vegan world is bound to respect. That's basically what that tweet is saying. And this is me playing off the famous quote that's similar to that, but a Black man has no rights that the white man is bound to respect. This is a quote from like over 60 years ago. So it's just basically that same coded language when I saw that tweet. So what are we doing about this? So last night I actually went to Sacramento to attend an event that's part of Sacramento Faces Race. And part of that event is a tour of vegan hip-hop youth dinners. And it's about, I think it's run by Keith Tucker, and he's doing a documentary called In Pursuit of a Green Planet. He's African-American, he's decided to go vegan 3 years ago, and he is that experiment. So he's never done it before. So he's documenting himself, but at the same time he's decided to put together every year these tours of hip-hop oriented vegan meals for youths. So this is what the vegan practice of Black Lives Matter when you look at what he and the entourage of allies, Black people, vegans are doing. So he's got a lot of sponsors. It was a great event, and there was a lot of singing and a lot of people there who are there understanding Black health disparities and understanding that veganism, whole foods vegan diet is very important to combat things like diabetes. So there's a table there, part of a movie that's going to be made called The Bigger Picture. And they take all of these things that are, you notice that this is Coca-Cola type of emblem, but they replaced it with diabetes. So it's a film to really address the proliferation of so much sugar, especially towards communities of color, and things like Coca-Cola and the food deserts, and just really tying into, what does a food desert look like? What are the consequences of environmental racism? What were the consequences of Black lives did not matter for hundreds of years? And you see it geographically. You see it in food access. So with this documentary, they have all of these great paraphernalia like this, diabetes, which is in the form of Coca-Cola. So you see that there, and they're there also to promote a plant-based diet for these communities that have these horrible health disparities. So, for me, this is another way the vegan practice of Black Lives Matter, and intertwining it, with also very, very important issues that have affected the Black community for decades. And here is just kind of this I guess, redefining or getting back at the roots of what hip-hop is. Not the top 40, not how it's been taken up by the corporate capitalist machine, and it's this thing that people think it's something bad. The roots of hip-hop is higher inner peace, helping other people, and they also have other ways of spinning it. So health inside people, health outside of people. So hip-hop started off in Brooklyn. It started off as, a way for brown and Black people who were living in systems of oppression to express that and to fight against it. That's the roots of it. And then it's been, turned into something that it really isn't when you look in the mainstream. So they're using these hip-hop methodologies in fusion with veganism for a youth culture that's, the generation of hip-hop, generation hip-hop. So this is DJ Cavem, and he's an eco gardener. He's a vegan. He's out in Denver, Colorado, and he was there at the event last night. And he basically reappropriates language in hip-hop from the past 30 years and makes it into something more positive. So for instance, he has a song called G's Up, Goes Down. It's if you know Snoop Dogg, that's something he wrote 20 years ago. But for DJ Cavem, a G is an organic grower. It's an original gangsta is the organic grower. Yeah. And then hoes, not like the disgusting way someone talks to a woman, but like literally the hoe to cultivate. So the song is called G's Up, Hoes Down. He's got a song called Wheatgrass, and he's out there with his videos literally showing people how to garden, but he's saying it in the language of hip-hop. And he's saying it in a way where he's not just talking about veganism like it's in a vacuum, but when I visited him out in Denver a few years ago to one of his festivals, he picked me up from the airport and he showed me what was going on in his community. You know, he's like, you know, they're trying to build another prison here and a Burger King, but across the street we got a garden. So he's like talking about how he's teaching the youths how to cultivate their communities, literally through gardening, but also he's well aware of the, you know, the prison industrial complex and how it's affecting the communities. He's well aware of, you know, all of these fast food restaurants that are targeting the black communities that are already suffering. So, you know, that garden, what that space represented, and then how he's using, like I said, hip-hop language and meeting the youth where they're at with that. And he's been incredibly successful with that. And these songs, he you know, a bunch of other vegan hip-hop rap artists, they're taking what mainstream thinks is like, oh, gangsta is this, they've redefined gangsta. And Stickman is another example of that. He said, was it green is the new gangsta or vegan is the new gangster? Like, let's redefine it. You know, and Stickman, he's part of Dead Prez. He's also vegan, African-American male. So, so DJ Cavem was there. And, you know, his work, and he was there with his wife, they do culinary concerts. And I'll show the concert after in a few minutes. Just showing how Black Lives Matter with veganism, that it's not separate. And here's part of the crew for the bigger picture. I just want to take a picture with, you know, I just think it's important to show the images, like, you know, people of color, we can be vegan, we can be health activists, we're doing the whole thing, and Black Lives Matter. And it can't be separate. And there's Dj Cavem and Alkemia, and what happened on stage was, so I'm a critical race materialist when it comes to food. So what this means is I look at how objects in this culture can tell us about racial power dynamics. And I look at food. So what I see here is what's happening. He's rapping and she's using a Vitamix blender and she's telling the kids what's going in that blender and what it does medicinally. But when I see the Vitamix blender, it's not this race-neutral object. It's an object of like decolonial. It's a decolonizing object. It's decolonizing the body. And these food objects are not just like superfoods. These are foods that she's using as a way to address the violence of racism that you see in terms of food deserts, and a lot of these kids don't have access to what they need. So these foods are literally, they've been re-symbolized for the Black Lives Matter movement. And Vitamix, like, that's that powerful tool. So during the conference, you know, he's singing, and she's saying, you know, I put ginger in here so it can cleanse your body, so it can cleanse those parasites out your body. And he's rapping, and it's just like, and the kids are up in the front yesterday, they were just like dancing, and it was beautiful. It was absolutely fantastic. Because like when I was young and people told me about fruits and vegetables, they didn't do it that way. And I share this with you because I think it's so important. I'm just so sick of seeing negative images of black people not being able to help themselves in the media. Like we need outside forces to help us, but there's like so many people doing it, and they're using the language and they're not separating it from racism. They're not separating it from speciesism. Like so many black vegans they're doing it. They're doing it. It's there. And there's like, once again, it seems like I'm a broken record because I keep on seeing in the mainstream say Black Lives Matter does not mesh with veganism. Like they're doing it. This is what it looks like. So I'm going to show the video in a bit. But what I was thinking was, the other day, I went to the Future of Food conference in San Francisco. Mostly Silicon Valley-backed startups of food and technology. 150 people there, yes, there were like 5 of us in the room that were black. As usual, because that's San Francisco, that's Silicon Valley. And I thought, the future of food is white? The future of food is post-racial? Like everyone was showing their, you know, really good, technologically good startup ideas and stuff that had been backed by Silicon Valley, millions of dollars poured in there. And I went to some of the people and I said, well, how can you use this technology for food security in like black neighborhoods? Or, you know, there are black people who are gardening, maybe you can use this technology in the inner city for this. Like, are you guys thinking about that? And one company said, well, no one's ever asked me about food access, or no one's ever told me about this. And I just thought, Black lives really don't matter in Silicon Valley. And they don't see that connection, because I could totally see this technology being used for most of the Black folk who are struggling to get those monetary resources, that technological resources. Like, we know what we need to do, but we would love to have Silicon Valley type of money. So if you're not familiar with food and tech, every week there's a magazine called Food and Tech. They talk about the hundreds of millions of dollars that are invested in food apps that really less than 1% of the population is really going to use. And I always think about if you can invest those resources in things like Black Lives Matter, merge with veganism, like what that would look like. But this event was called The Future of Food. And then, a few days later, I go to this event, largely Black and brown people doing Black Lives Matter fused with, addressing racism, addressing health disparities. I'm like, this is what the future of food should look like. It should address, the importance of veganism because of the cruelty towards animals, the water shortages in California, how it's just healthier, and how it's going to help with the issues that a lot of these communities of color are facing in terms of health and water shortages. It's just like it's so important. So that's kind of what I was thinking, and a little bit frustrated about. If you're familiar with Silicon Valley and like who they back in terms of food, like I said, it's always post-racial. They're not really interested in helping communities like this thrive. And if you know the history of Silicon Valley, it wouldn't have been in existence if it wasn't for the fact that there was the brown and Black laborers there to help the white wealthy become wealthier. As domestics harvesting the food, like those food apps, they need the food to exist, right? But who's harvesting the food? Who are the food workers? So, just really looking into that and looking at how Black lives should matter, and also, other workers like Latino, exploited immigrant workers and stuff, how that still does not matter. Even when the apps that are focused on like catering vegan food, like why are those companies not looking past the profit? Well, I know because it's profitable, but why are they not talking about and engaging with what Black Lives Matter could look like with food and tech in this way? So those are the things I was thinking about, and I want to actually share the video. Let's cross my fingers that actually the video works. I hope it doesn't work because I'm not paying attention. Let me go to my, don't mind me. So I'm going to show it this way. I won't show the whole thing, but I want you to get a sense of what Dj Cavem and Alkemia are doing.
Y'all listen, man, I think can some of y'all...
Sorry about that. It's on my screen, not yours. Just give me a second. Okay, there we go.
I would like to touch y'all. I'm just rocking concerts, you know what I'm saying? See, that's what I love, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Straight rock this culinary concert.
Can you hear it?
You war. That's why we got the show proof. Like, we show proof. Tell the president. Tell the president. Tell your friend like. In the kitchen like. Them GMO foods is killing us. Everywhere we look, you know what I'm saying? On every corner store, it's the real trip. We tell everybody in the hood, let them know, like, we don't want no cheap here. 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 Tell the president, we don't want no GMO. Tell your friend, like, we don't want no GMO. Let them know, let them know, let them know. Let it grow, y'all. Check it out. My name is DJ Cavem. What's happening in Sacramento? So I'm gonna go down the line. I'm an environmental hip hop artist, represent straight from Denver, Colorado. I'm a father of 8 children. I'm a midwife, organic gardener.
So I'm gonna pause. Sorry. So there's a lot going on here. He also refers to GMOs as genetically modified oppression. So he's looking at food that way. And I'm writing a book about him and 5 other men involved in hip hop and vegan. And he said he's a midwife, so I think it's important to note. The way he is an alternative form of masculinity, and there's many different types of masculinity, but it's a very alternative form that's not seen in the Black community. He and his wife decided to have a vegan pregnancy and unassisted home births, and he learned to become a midwife, so he did that. So I just think, once again, not relying on, I mean, not everyone can do it, but literally not relying on the biopharmaceuticals, not relying on the medicalization of birth, gynecology, OBGYN, whatever you want to call it, because of the histories of how Black people have been treated in hospitals. I mean, just like, this is deep, what he does, and what he represents and what they're doing. So I just kind of want to give you that background, and I'm not going to show the whole thing. I have a few minutes left, but I want to speed up where he starts talking about I'm in love with that mango. So she's doing it, and we're trying to find it. And we're really good friends, so I'm biased, of course, but he and I, we've known each other for a long time. He's like a little brother to me. So let's see if I can do this. Try to find when he's talking about it. 1 second. Probably toward the end. She's making these, okay? So she's making this. So she's talking about what she's putting in there. I'm gonna speed up to the
Tell her what you got in there.
So 1 or 2 lemons, a handful of tangerine greens, and a little bit of gravy, maple syrup to sweeten water.
Yeah. So check this out. She's not with this one. As we get this all ready. Can I hit y'all with another track? How vibe with this? Let me see what y'all know when I hit you with this. Because I like to be in the grove. I like to go into the forest. When I don't always eat off trees. But when I do.
Wait.
I like to eat mangoes.
I like mangoes too, though.
You know what I'm saying?
Mangoes.
Listen to this.
That dry mango, though?
Yo, it's the alright. You want the alright in there? Hey, yo, look at this.
The little kids are all in the front, like dancing.
Let me show you how we do this. I know y'all scared. I'm like, oh no, no, you do. We're doing like this. Yeah. I'm in love with that mango. I'm in love with that mango. We gotta pull the phone up. I'm in love with that mango. I'm in love with that mango.
pepper out to the crowd, so a lucky winner could get it. Then he said, I ain't got no hot sauce in this house, I just got cayenne pepper, so. So it's just, anyway, I want to share that with you because this is a work in progress that I'm doing, because the Vegan Praxis of Black Lives Matter, it's a conference, but also it's going to be a book, showing what these people are doing. So this is what the Vegan Praxis of Black Lives Matter, this is why it matters. This is kind of my response to people with the consciousness or lack of consciousness of vegan revolution when they post things like what they had posted or tweeted. And this is kind of a work in progress, so I'm just hoping to share the intersectional approaches that a lot of these folk are doing that's underground, or not really given the attention they need in the media. So his name is DJ Cavem, her name is Alkemia.
How do you spell it?
DJ, and then Cavem, C-A-V-E-M. They have an entire curriculum dedicated to children using hip-hop. He's got music. I mean, they go across the country doing this work, and they're into animal compassion, Black liberation, Black Lives Matter. I mean, just like they're the future of food, and that's how they represent. They're one of the many of how vegan praxis matters. And like I said, I'm writing a book hopefully in 2016 that reflects their work, and then 5 or 6 other people, Black vegans in hip hop, using hip hop methodologies and what it means for Black Lives Matter. So let me just share with you finally. I'm a little confused right here. And then I want to share my contact information. So how do I do this? Play. Okay, so if you want to learn more about what I'm doing, my email is above, but there's also my Sistah Vegan website. I do consulting if you're interested in that, and then my books. I've written several books. Sistah Vegan, then I have a new book called Scars, A Black Lesbian Experience in New England, and I've done several talks throughout several institutions doing a critical race materialist reading of the food objects in that novel and how it represents the racial power dynamics and blackness, whiteness, stuff like that. The book is called Scars. So that's my info, and this is a work in progress, so thank you very much for joining. And the Sistah Vegan Conference, if you want to access the recordings, it's sistahveganconference.com. You do have to pay for it, but if you can't, I have discounts or free scholarships or whatever, because I want it to be accessible to all. Okay, so thank you, and let me know if you have any questions. Comments? Yes?
I have one. I'm going to try and put it into words because it's kind of a little hard for me to, because I just thought of it. But I know someone who is vegan and completely discredits the non-GMO movement and also permaculture and localization of making food because GMOs and industrial or the producing on mass scale is somehow better for people because it's more efficient. And I think, like, I don't know if I'm getting it from this person because I don't really know them that well, but it's like stuff I see online. And sometimes I think some people, whether it's when you are vegan or something else, you think you have it all figured out and you're discrediting things you don't understand maybe, that kind of attack your knowledge base. I was just wondering if you have any advice for, because I mean, I know a lot of stuff about like resources about bad things about GMOs and good things about local agriculture, but I don't know how to tell the person, I don't know how to get that conversation rolling that's not seen as an attack.
Yeah, well, like my experience, and it's usually from the viewpoint of trying to talk to largely white people about racism and whiteness, is that, I mean, the information's there. Most people have access, they can Google it. They're just, I can plant the seed, the information is there, but I really can't do much. Because like, I'm at the point where then I'd be forcing that into them, and they're just not ready. And there's like, you can't force someone to let go of the fear and let go of that denial, because that's what I had to learn. Because I would get frustrated, I'm like, but I got a PhD and a master's and I wrote a dissertation, shouldn't that be enough? But apparently it's not when you're not at the level where you're saying, like, you know, it seems like the person is being, they feel like they're being attacked. They even think that, I'm a good person, you must be attacking me. And it's making me uncomfortable because I thought I was a good person because I was doing life this way. My advice is that you can only do your best, you can present the knowledge there and then just leave it. Because you might not see the change in your lifetime or overnight, but I've had people write me years later and say, remember when I said that stupid thing? I get it now. Like, you know, I thought about it, I've read about it, and this is, you know, whether it's someone I just encounter or a convert, even my own parents, like my mom, she doesn't get certain things. And then 7 years later, she finally understood why she should be eating organic and then saying this stuff. So it's just like, you know, you plant the seed, it's there, they have it, but not everyone is ready for it for various reasons. So you do your best without, you know, expecting a particular result. I know, that's just my opinion. So you and then you.
Hi, I really enjoyed your talk, and I am a healthcare provider that lives pretty inner city. And how would you suggest somebody goes about bringing, especially into my Black community, the idea that fried isn't always good and organic? I mean, there's such a culture of eating a certain way, and even a yuck when you start talking about eating organically, or like literally like a visual, oh, ooh, I don't want to eat like that, that's not going to be good, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's just different approaches depending on the demographic, you know. So, you know, I just highly suggest referring to Dj Cavem. I mean, I'm going to answer it. He's got the entire curriculum there. He's got the entire, like, different way of speaking. So he grew up in the hood of Denver. So he's figured it out. Yeah. I would suggest that you contact him and go to his work, and he's got everything laid out on how to do it. He and his wife are doing it. And he and similar people, they're doing that stick man. I mean, he's got a way to do it as well. I have to admit, I grew up in rural white New England, so that's not my upbringing. I'm just more theoretically looking at it as an academic. But I don't actually have the embodied experience of living in a hip-hop culture in the inner city and reaching out to Black folk about veganism and plant-based diets. But DJ Cavem, just search DJ Cavem and it'll come up. He's a Green for All scholar. He's got the curriculum. He's got everything to help you with that question. So, I mean, just you had a question.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks, Breeze. That was an amazing talk. But also, when working within the broader left, I've noticed sometimes that continuously we see this allegation that veganism and animal compassion are colonizing forces. Mm-hmm. That language is often used, that it's colonizing. And as a white person on stolen indigenous land, I don't really feel like my response is relevant to that conversation. So I'm just curious, maybe if I may ask, what your thoughts are on that allegation.
Yeah, I actually think that's just about any mainstream issue. That if the mainstream population is going about it in a way that is not respectful of like the lived histories of marginalized people, the language is going to sound colonizing. It's going to sound missionary-esque, is that a word? So whether it's veganism, animal rights, whether it's an omnivorous, healthy way of eating, if the mainstream goes in not understanding that the way that they engage in white logic, white methods, and white communication, it's going to come off as colonialistic and missionary-esque. So my response is that I can understand how a lot of non-white communities would perceive it that way because of the method of communication that has been used. So, you know, whether it's veganism or animal rights or any other new fringe or what looks like fringe thing from the mainstream whites that are trying to reach out to communities of color, if that particular demographic does not understand how their ways of communicating are just entrenched in a colonialistic missionary way, then that's going to be the result. So my response is always, it's not necessarily the communities of color that's the problem, it's that turning the lens on oneself and their whiteness and how being racialized as white has actually unconsciously created a way of communicating that you're not conscious of. And that comes off as like colonizing language. So there's, you know, there's articles, there's books written about understanding that communication style and really digging deep into that and changing it. So that would kind of be my response. And also pointing on, not forcing it, but pointing to communities that you're talking about, to like people like DJ Cavem's work or the hip-hop green movement dinners. Like all of these folk are using anti-racist, decolonial language for the most part when they're referring to animal rights, animal compassion, veganism. And that's a way that the communities are like, they feel like more comfortable with it. So I would just like, as a, maybe just lightly point people like, okay, maybe how we're doing it isn't working, but look at these communities that are actually doing it in the language that we're using. So hopefully that's helpful with you. Thanks. You're welcome. Yes?
First of all, thank you so much for your speech, but I guess I was wanted to speak, I guess, kind of slightly to answer your question, just because Lizbeth Ross's group started as like a Facebook group called Cali Vegans of Color, which I was a part of, and one of the great things about it was just having like this like community, or we had potlucks, and a lot of times like you know, people would bring their family members, and it was like kind of a great way to like kind of introduce people to vegan food. And another thing that we did was we went to this group called A New Way of Life, which was an organization that helped in South Central LA that helps formerly incarcerated women transition back into society. And so they, Lizbeth had contacted this group to do like a potluck with these women, and they had no idea about like how to eat, you know, or like cook better with like vegetables and whole foods, and they were very receptive to it, and were very curious about our group and veganism. So that might be one way if you wanted to like start something like potlucks and stuff like that with your community, just a suggestion, because that worked for,
Yeah, and that's what was going on last night. That's why Keith has this tour of HipHop vegan dinners. Yeah, and like that's the best way if you can just make really good tasting vegan food and you bring the community together and it's free. Everyone comes for free food. And you might want to see if he has a tour or if he's coming to Portland. I'd be surprised if he wasn't this year, or if he isn't at least planning it for next year. But he's based out of Seattle, but they're hitting all the major cities. So Keith Tucker is his name, and it's the Hip Hop Youth Dinners. And I should have put that up there, but your answer reminded me that, I probably should let you know that that's what's going on. Any more questions or comments? And you can feel free to write me. And I always say I have 3 kids under the age of 6, and if I don't respond to you, it's because I have 3 kids under the age of 6, and I'm sleep deprived, or they're like, mommy, mommy, mommy. So I'm not ignoring you, but you can also send a reminder like, I watched you a few weeks ago, just wanted to check in. But I'm not ignoring you. I just you know, kind of juggling mommyhood and activismhood and all that stuff. So oh yes.
Oh, where's your tour taking you next?
I'm sorry, what?
Where's your tour taking you next?
You know, I'm actually done. This is like the last, it's usually just during the academic year, so I don't actually have anything booked. I've been to Oregon a million times this year, so it seems like Oregon's where it's at. But I may be going out to Dartmouth College in the summer, my alma mater, because they may want to bring me out, but we'll see. So far, I don't have anything else booked. So if you like what you hear and you want to bring me back, it's an easy commute from Oakland Airport, so, you know, just...
what about to LA?
LA, yeah, even easier. Even easier. So,
cool.
Yeah. I've been out to LA several times, the area this year. I went to Pomona. I know it's not exactly in LA, but I went to give the talk at SCARS and did the reading, and it was received pretty well. So,
cool.
Yeah, but just contact me if you have interest in having me talk.
Totally.
Yes?
One last thing. I'm sorry. I feel weird as a white person saying this, but like, I just wanted to kind of, since African liberation and food were both brought up, I kind of wanted to plug something that's going on in the community with the All African People's Revolutionary Party. They had put out an ask to the community to donate food for their free breakfast program. So if folks can do that, that's like what's needed, I guess.
almost like in the tradition of the Black Panthers.
Totally.
Yeah, I know like a lot of people don't know the Black Panthers. What pissed off the government was that the Black Panther Party wanted to have food sovereignty and food security, and the people who can feed themselves, like, you can't control them. So if you look at the history of that, like, that's how they started the free breakfast programs. That's what really pissed off the CIA. They're like, wow, this is dangerous because they can feed themselves. So just kind of something to think about, and that's cool that you brought that up with kind of that continuation. So thank you for attending the talk and being here as this book in progress, this thing in progress with me. And if you want to email me. I have my website. I have a Facebook group if you want to join. So thank you.
I watch you go like that.